Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, I hope you're all well. So, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the newest addition from Strymon, which is the NightSky. Here is the NightSky in all its glory, absolutely beautiful looking pedal. So, Strymon sent me this pedal, they got in touch and said, can we send you a NightSky? They didn't even ask about a video or anything like that, they just wanted to send me one. I've been a fan of Strymon for years and years and I use all their gear. I've got all of my pedal board, as I always talk about. If you follow this channel a while, you'll know that. So they sent it over and of course I'm going to do a video, of course I'm going to check it out. But in all honesty, when it got here and I unboxed it and I had a quick plug in, I was like, this is difficult. And honestly, this was the most difficult Strymon pedal for me to get my head round straight out the box than any of the other Strymon stuff that I've used. And why is that? I think ultimately in my head my expectations were new guitar reverb pedal, wicked. But it's not just a reverb pedal for guitarists at all. This pedal is designed for music makers, producers, songwriters, people that enjoy sound and want to manipulate sound and explore and create. It's not just for guitarists, and that was a quick lesson I needed to learn. It's also worth saying that Rhett Shull's video on the NightSky was hugely inspirational to me. Really enjoyed watching that, and it gave me a great insight into this pedal, because I was confused. I wanted to know what other people thought, so I checked out his video. If you don't know Rhett Shull or haven't seen that video, you should check it out because it's awesome and he's a dude. But just so you know, this isn't your standard Rabea pedal demo. In this video, we're going to be trying it through different applications, and like I said, I've already told you my feelings on it. It's definitely not your run-of-the-mill guitar reverb pedal at all. So I've got the NightSky set up into a stereo rig, so I'm running the Soldano and the VX100. The NightSky is in the loop of both, and I'm going through my pedal board so that I can go into the front of both of these amps. And I just figured I'd show you how I'd dial it in if it was a reverb pedal for guitarists. Because obviously it is, to an extent, but I'm going to show you how I dial in a reverb. So the first preset, the orange preset in number 1, is pretty much just a straight up reverb. But what I've done is I've lowered all the controls that you can add to the reverb to get all these cool effects and so on and so forth, and any depth controls for modulation taken away. So we can just go through the pedal so I can show you how you can, manipulate the reverb. So this is the sound I've got for my guitar, and the reverb currently dialed in as sort of standard. So as you can hear, it's a beautiful sounding reverb, pretty straightforward. And we can start messing around. And the cool thing is here, the way it's laid out is really straightforward and easy to use. So my favorite part about this is having that independent control on 2 knobs for my dry and my reverb. So I can have a totally dry signal, or I can dial it in wherever I want it. And vice versa, I can take the dry out completely. So that is very cool. I found that to be a lot of fun when using the Moog as well. But anyway, let me show you how I went about dialing in a cool reverb sound. So I started in order. So I started up here in the sort of modulation area, or the oscillation, or whatever you want to call it. Now you can target a few different things. So we've got our speed knob and our depth knob. So speed in the middle, let's turn the depth up so you can hear what's happening. So this is how you dial in your sort of modulation. You can change the kind of waveform, so you can see it's sine wave, and you got square wave, sawtooth, random, envelope, all that kind of stuff. And you can have that target different things. So the reverb, trail, so that's kind of, if I turn up the decay, as you can hear, you can really make that sound intense. But the idea being is then we can sort of scroll through. So that affects the reverb, as I said. We can have it affect the pitch of the reverb. Or the filter. Much slower and more subtle, but you can hear it. So let's go back to pitch where it's most obvious. Now we're going to change the waveform. So as you could hear, I turned the infinite mode on, obviously one of my favorite features, and then you can really start messing with the reverb. That's kind of how I'd like to dial it in, where I set the reverb going on infinite and then I can really fine tweak. But anyway, that's kind of your modulation setting, and you can get really, really creative there. I just like to have sort of a mild amount happening on a sine wave. Sounds really good. And then the next area that I like to use is the decay. So obviously you can change the length of the decay, so it could be nice and short, or you can have it full on. There's something about their algorithms, Strymon's algorithms with the decay thing, that just, it never sounds fake. It always just sounds like some really beautiful, high fidelity, you know, really expensive sounding reverb, but obviously it is an expensive pedal. You know what I mean? It sounds expensive, which I love. Then the texture of this reverb. So you can have a dense texture, a diffused texture, or a sparse texture. So in the minute we've got dense, which I really enjoy. That's for me kind of the most natural. Then diffused. There's more of a pre-delay there. Really beautiful. And then sparse, which is actually amazing. So the cool thing here is you can hear this really intense sound. Now the size and the pitch knob changes the speed of that sparse decay. Turn the decay up. It almost becomes like a delay. Now, the next control, which is size and pitch. Now, obviously, that changes individual characteristics of each of these textures. So obviously sparse, it's changing the speed of those sparse decays. But with the density, yeah, it's a different type of reverberation. You can really affect the size, as it says here, size and pitch, but it's definitely less dense the lower it goes. It's funny that. And then with diffusion. So you can quite clearly hear it's changing that sort of, the overall density of the reverbs, to my ear at least. Let's go back to dense. Right, quantize. Now this is for when you're using the step sequencer, or you want to mess around with the reverb decays in infinite mode, or just use it on the fly. Now the cool thing is that you've got 3 different modes. You've got smooth, you've got half step, and you've got scale. Smooth is obviously, the pitch is like a glide, half step being chromatic, and then of course scale is a scale. And you've got up to 8 scales stored into this pedal, and you can obviously make your own as well, which we'll get onto in a bit, but it's really, really cool. So I'm going to turn up the reverb, turn down the dry signal, turn up the length, so you'll hear what happens in smooth mode. Very, very cool. Now, if I'm using this in infinite mode, so infinitely epic. So now if I do the same thing, but with the half step mode engaged. It makes a lot more sense when you're not using it just on the fly like that. It's very handy having the control like that. And then we'll do scale. And I'll show you how you change different scales, but we'll start with this one. So that's pentatonic by the sounds of it. Now, if you're using a scale, it makes sense not to throw in majors and minors because it will sound kind of weird. You kind of want to just use fifths and octaves. So if I was to do just... So I find that immense. The infinite mode for me, for jamming and getting used to my sort of different modal ideas and improv ideas and different, I guess, intervallic jumps and training, find infinite mode to be really useful. So as I said before, there are 8 scales in here you can access. At the minute we're on pentatonic, which is under number 1. If you want to change that, you simply just hold the size pitch button and you'll see that the preset button changes color. When it goes orange, it means we can choose which scale we want to use. So at the minute, as I said, we're on pentatonic. So if we move to scale number 2, what we got. So that's major pentatonic. Moving on, let's try number 3. To me, that sounds like some sort of Phrygian with the flat 5. I'm not sure what that is. My theory's not very good, but let's try a random one like number 6. What's this one going to be? This is really fun, but I don't want to stay on it for ages. Let me just do one more. So that's the diminished scale. Okay, well now we know that it's the diminished scale. What happens if I go... Anyway, moving on. Now we've got the filter section. Now this is how you can do high pass and low pass stuff. So you hear how that works, and you can either have that on the reverb, but then if you go low pass, so you get the idea there. It's basically how you can get rid of some of the flub in your EQ sound if you don't want it there. Next up is our shimmer kind of voicing settings, and this is where things get really interesting and you get some really beautiful textures, and then where you tie it all together using some of the modulation and everything else. So I'm going to put the shimmer on input. And next, you can change the interval here that you want the shimmer to be. So you've got fifths, fourths, seconds, octaves and stuff. So I'm going to keep it on an octave, keep it on the input, and now we can really shape this. So you've got glimmer to your shimmer. So it can either affect the high or the low. So let's put it on high. Let me change it to, that's beautiful. Let me change it to low. So it's just a little less pristine in the top because you want it's hitting a lower sort of harmony, I guess. That's a beautiful sound. Great for soundscapes and sound design. It's just sound. And then finally drive, so you can have that pre or post for the glimmer and shimmer. I've set up a little bit of a reverb trail going on. Now, if I want to play over this and I don't want the reverb to add to it, it's really, really easy to do. You simply hold the target and then you change the reverb knob. So if you hold target and then change reverb, you can see the LED on preset 1 goes red or green. Green means that you're going to hear the reverb when I play. Red means you're just going to get dry signal on top of that. So let's try that. I mean, you could write worship songs so easily with this pedal. Anyway, so that's the basic gist, I think, of using this pedal, how I'd use it to dial in a sound. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, for guitar side of things, like, as far as you can really go aside from messing around with the step sequencer. That's why it doesn't feel like exclusively a guitar reverb. It's not just that. But as I said, using it in that context, although I'd still use the Big Sky over the Night Sky for my reverbs on my pedal board any day. Not because it's better, it's just more for a guitarist's kind of rig than this, I feel. But yeah, it's really easy to dial in a great sort of sound. And as I said, for sound design, writing, production, this thing is incredible. Right, let's move on to the step sequencer. Now that we've kind of looked at how the pedal works and how we can dial in a sound, or at least my take on how that works, now I've kind of worked out how to use the step sequencer. The easiest way to get into it is if you hold infinite and then we jump into step sequencer mode. The LEDs indicate how many steps there are in said sequence. So the easiest way for me to show you this is to play and then hit infinite on, so I don't have to play again, and then I can mess with the sequence. One thing to note is if you want to change the pitch or the note of each step, you simply hold the preset button and then you change the size pitch knob, and it will change the note that you want it to be, so that when you use the step sequencer, you can really fine tweak these scales and notes and loops and create some really cool stuff. Make sure you know what you're on, smooth, half step or scale under quantize, because smooth, obviously, it's all the cents and individual microtones. Half step is, you know, if you want to do something a bit more weird, and scale will lock you into the scale that it's set to, so pentatonic or, you know, diminished as we looked at. So I'm going to put it in half step, and now let's mess around and try and tune ourselves a little step sequence. So the easiest way to do that is ring out the chord in infinite, and then I can go through systematically each sequence, each step of my sequence, and tune that, and then use the middle switch to set my sequence going, and I can use that as a tap tempo. Hopefully that made sense. So here we go. So as you've heard, I've just stepped through the sequences, steps 1 to 4. So I'm going to start tuning these now. So now I've set my step sequences, and I can dial in other sounds to make this sound even better and different. But then I can start tapping in how fast I want this to go. So like dun, dun, dun. Yeah, there you go. So now what I have to do, what I didn't realize, is that I've kept my playing over the reverb on, so I have to go and hit target and then change that. As you can see, green LED means I'm going to get trails, red means off, so now I can play over this. Something else I might do is throw on the volante for some rhythm, some reverb and delay. They know how to do it, don't they? Strymon, like, that's the first time I've attempted it. Throw on the volante for a little bit of delay and reverb from that, and honestly, it's so cool. So as I've been saying, I feel like the NightSky is aimed not only at guitarists for some nice reverbs, but it's really at music makers, sound designers, people that play synths and things like that. Now, I'm not a synth player. I use it on recordings. I use it for overdubs. I'm very bad at playing, you know. So, but I've had this synth for a few years now and absolutely love it. So I figured, because I've been spending most of my time with the NightSky messing around with this, you know, for recordings and layers and things, that I'd, you know, show you what it sounds like. So this is a Moog Subsequent 37 or Sub 37, it's very similar. I'm running straight into the NightSky and then left, right, out of that into my Apollo. So what you can hear. So I'll just turn the NightSky off for now. This is what we've got. We can mess with that. So that's a cool sound. Let me throw on the NightSky and I'll show you what I mean. It just gets way more fun. So I'm loving that. As I said, I'm not a synth player. I use it for effect on my songs, but let me show you what happens when you start using an arpeggiator. So yeah, I'm messing around just trying to get really cool, weird sounds with the arpeggiator. But as I say, it allows you to mess around with this almost like it's its own modular synth. Now, I am, as I've said many a time, I'm inexperienced in this world, but for me, this is where this rig, this is what feels most relevant for the NightSky to me. Like I can sit here and I can mess around here, get something going and just create soundscapes, you know? Really, really enjoying it. So that was one way of using it. That's kind of how I like to design my soundscapes and stuff with the synth. But one of the nice features with sparse mode having a rhythmic element to it is you could use an arpeggiator, link them up. Now if you're running this through MIDI and you could have it all clocked together, it would work perfectly. But I'm going to try and do it manually. So for example, let me have a go. So we can also, if we don't want to have too much low end coming through the repeat, you can use the low cut. And then add a little bit of that. Right, now. Again, super rudimentary example of using these two in conjunction with each other to create some really interesting layers and sounds, but you get the idea. At this point, it really is a case of what can you put this through that's going to give you some sort of unique, really moldable, textural soundscapes, because it's super fun. I mean, I'm enjoying using it in this combination probably more so than I would if I was just plugging my guitar in. But of course, you know, it is aimed at guitarists as well, and so it's important for me to show you guys what it's capable of in terms of a guitar reverb. But for me, I'm just scratching the surface. It's like the tip of the iceberg of what kind of cool sounds I can create with the NightSky and my Moog, or any keyboard or synth that you might have hold of. Okay then, there it is. There's the NightSky from Strymon. Yeah, I'm sorry if this video is long. I don't know how long the video is because I'm shooting it randomly in different sections, trying to cover all the ground. About this pedal and what I think. Well, I think it's really, you're missing the mark if you're a guitarist and you just want this as a reverb. That's the top and bottom of it for me. I think it's a stunning reverb, absolutely great reverb. As you heard, I was dialing in some sublime reverbs. Nothing I couldn't do with the Big Sky. Where the Big Sky falls short of the NightSky is all the other stuff, the pitch-driven stuff, the quantizing, the step sequencing, all the stuff that guitarists probably wouldn't find that useful. And because ultimately when you're playing, you can't be bending down and twiddling all these knobs, and yeah, you could program it with a expression pedal, but you'd still be missing out. And even if you use MIDI, I still think you'd be missing out. There's a reason it's got instrument and line switch on the back, and that's because really, for me, it's more of a synth tool. When and in this video, I've tried to do a bit with the Moog so you can hear how it would work. But if you had a synth rig set up and you had this sat somewhere so that you could be playing away and tweak the NightSky at the same time as playing on the Moog, that's where the magic happens for me. I've really enjoyed teaming this up with keys and with Moog and stuff, and find as a music writer and producer and soundscape and sound design and all that stuff way more rewarding than just plugging my guitar in and getting some nice reverbs. So hopefully that makes sense. If you're a guitarist looking for a nice reverb, I would avoid this. I think you'd spend a lot of money and be disappointed. If you are a music producer, a music writer, a sound designer, a fan of high fidelity, beautiful ambient spaces, whatever, you know, in that realm of things, then this is amazing. This is absolutely going to help you out, inspire you to no end, and probably help you create some really cool stuff. So once again, I'm impressed from Strymon. I am biased at the end of the day because Strymon are one of my favorite companies for effects. I'm going to get a lot of use out of this, but not from the guitar. So that's about as honest as I can be on it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I sincerely hope you have. Thank you so much to Strymon for being legends and sending this pedal over and just generally creating tools for musicians and music makers that genuinely do never fail to inspire me and blow me away with how good they sound and how well thought out they are. So thank you, Strymon, for being great. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I'll link this to the description box. Like, subscribe and share. I've been Rabea, and I will see you all very soon.